Hello, good morning students of class 12 Economics. Welcome to Pandya sir's virtual class on development economics. And today our topic of discussion is privatization and its effect on the economy. Students, since 1990, when the condition of Indian economy became worse, that time India incurred too much debt, and almost all the entire GDP of Indian economy was being spent to clear the interest only. That time India, with the suggestion of international financial institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, who gave financial assistance to India for the revival of Indian economy. According to their suggestion, India followed the three-tier principle of LPG, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. And in this series, we have already discussed earlier what is liberalization and how it affected the Indian economy. So today, we will be discussing what is privatization and what are its positive effect and negative effect on the Indian economy. So, what is privatization? During the beginning, in the beginning of the aftermath of the independence of India, almost public sector was dominant in Indian economy. And there was many drawbacks of public sector like corruption, like lack of efficiency, and due to those factors, the Indian economy could not achieve the desired level of development. And in the new industrial policy that started from 1991, the Indian government started transferring the ownership from public sector to private sector. That means the areas where private sector were controlled or denied to enter, in those areas also, now the government decided to give free entry for private enterprises or private sector, because private sector was more efficient than government sector. So this is for the revival of Indian economy. So privatization is a process in which the government deliberately transfers the ownership, might it be full ownership or partial ownership, to private sector, so that the Indian economy can perform better. So this is privatization. And in the first phase, we will be discussing the good impact of privatization. What are the good effects of privatization? So it is given point-wise. We will discuss the first point being improve efficiency of management. What happened earlier in the public sector, the management and its efficiency was far below the requirement due to corruption. And now, because private sector entered into those areas, the efficiency of management increased manifold. And the second point is financial discipline. Financial discipline means the prudent way of making investment. So where to spend money, where to invest money, and where not to invest money. Private sector being, and its main objective is to earn profit. So when the enterprise tries to earn more profit, then obviously he has to show financial discipline. And in the public sector it was very poor, but in the private sector it became better and better and better, so that the economy can develop. The third point is reduction in budgetary deficit. So when the economy started developing, that means when the private sector earned more profit, when the private sector produced better goods and quality goods, and now the government need not provide any protection to any producer because they are self-sufficient. They can compete with their competitors. So obviously the budgetary policy, the budgetary situation, that means the difference between government's expenditure and government's income, which was worse during the time of, that is during the year 1990. Now the gap, that means expenditure and income, the gap or the budgetary deficit started decreasing and decreasing. That means government income started increasing. Then competitiveness. So as government is no more providing any sort of protection, the private enterprises, they spend money in research and development, and they started producing qualitatively better goods in order so that they can compete with their counterparts from foreign producers. So in this way, competitiveness increased in the area of production. Then the next point is more important, it is diversification. Diversification means a particular, the number of farms in the industry started increasing. We also have discussed in the in previous class, that is in liberalization, that what is diversification. Diversification means suppose we were producing only tomato and we started diversification, and as a measure of diversification, as a result, now we are starting, we are not only producing tomato, with tomato we are producing tomato jam, tomato jelly, tomato sauce, tomato puree, many more products. So this process is called diversification. So obviously when more production units start functioning, then obviously the level of income, the level of employment in the economy starts increasing. More and more people get employment. The final point is increase in foreign direct investment. Earlier, the condition of Indian economy was not so suitable so that the foreigners would be interested in investing in India. But now, because competitiveness came and the Indian government started following the policy of privatization, now more and more foreign players, that is foreign institutions, they started investing in India, and as a result the stock of foreign exchange of India started growing, which was very poor during the 90s. So these are the plus points of the policy of privatization. But so along with all these plus points or good effects, there are some bad effects also, undesirable things that happened during the phase of privatization. So point wise we will discuss. First one, the greatest drawback of the policy of privatization is neglect of public welfare. Public welfare, which is a must for any government. Now the volume of the quantity of public welfare started shrinking. Why? Because more and more private player came into the field of production, and the purpose, the only objective of private parties is to earn profit. They have nothing to do with public welfare, unlike government institutions or public sector. So more private sector means less and less welfare activities, which actually the poor people suffered more. Then the second point is higher priced goods. Obviously, this when the producers invest in research and development, when they produce qualitatively better good, then obviously the price of the good would increase. But its effect is negative, because in a country where more than 80% people are poor, then they cannot afford to purchase higher priced goods. But obviously the result of privatization was higher priced goods. Next, developing a monopoly pattern. Developing monopoly pattern is a straightforward result of privatization. Actually, when we start privatizing our economy, almost we start following a not a socialistic pattern of economy. The economy starts turning into such an economy where very few people earn more of the GDP and a large mass of people get a very less percentage of the GDP. And what was the result? The result was that the difference between rich and poor started increasing and there was no equal distribution of national income or our gross domestic product. Then the next point is a concentration of power in few hands. So when we say the word power, it refers to actually money power. So as the difference between rich and poor started increasing, then obviously the monetary power or the income, a major chunk of income went straight forward to a very less number of people. In a data, according to a data, we can roughly estimate the situation like that 80% of our GDP goes to only 20% of our population, and a major 80% of our population gets only 20% of our GDP. This is never can be called as a fair or equitable distribution of our national income. So, full employment equilibrium, it was also disturbed. Why? Obviously, in a populous country like India, the producers should be following not capital intensive technology but labor intensive technology. And in a labor intensive technology, actually the cost of production is more, and the cost of production can be minimized when the producer starts following capital intensive technology. And in the new policy, in the new industrial policy, as there was no more restriction to import capital goods from foreign, then obviously the employers would be interested in capital intensive technology, and as they started increasing investment in capital goods and started following capital intensive technology, then obviously a large number of people became unemployed. So this due to privatization, the number of unemployed people in India started growing, which is a major concern for any economy. So these are all the positive points and negative points of the policy of privatization. So in our next class, we will be discussing about the third point, that is globalization. And if you are getting any trouble, anything, any concept you are not getting, not understanding, then please contact me and clear it down. Thank you. Have a nice day.